We are pleased, we are delighted, we can't express in so many words our deep feelings about the coming of our Tsimshian brothers and sisters. I'm sure it was no easy choice for them to make, to learn some of their traditional dances and music. Like one of our speakers said, the soil, the strata of culture has buried much of the things that were dear to us, and certainly the Tsimshian people are no exception. We have all been caught in that kind of a situation. And now I'm pleased to present to you Ira Booth, who has worked with them and has made some study about the culture, and understand he belongs to the Killer Whale group. Ira, welcome, and your group.
Mr. Postmaster, Shimgiget, Shigetum Hanau, at Look Akiget. Now, what I said was people of high stature, chiefs, and ladies of high stature, and then the rest of us. That includes me. It is an honor for me to represent the Tsimshian Nation at this moment. We've been looking forward to this for some weeks, and we're certainly grateful that the Sealaska Corporation, through the Heritage Foundation, has seen fit to include us. It has been, to this point, a very enjoyable experience, one that we will look forward to repeating again. Now, to show our appreciation, the group told me yesterday, we want to leave a little remembrance to the wives of the two presidents of the Sealaska Corporation and the Heritage Foundation. So if I'll ask 4 of the ladies from home who have worked the hardest in trying to revive the culture at home, and they will present the 2 little presents. And the presents will go to Mrs. Byron Malott and Mrs. David Katzik. So if all 6 women will come forward, we will perform this on the stage. Now, if my wife won't fall from fright, she can lead the group.
Car 313 has its lights on. Car 313.
Now, the lady to my immediate left is my wife, Edna. She knows more people amongst you, that is, women folks, that is, than I do. But I also notice that she knows a lot of men. The next one to her left is my sister-in-law, Ruth Booth, my brother Melbourne's wife, and the mother of 3 of these pretty girls you'll see. And the next one is Evelyn Littlefield, Mrs. Henry Littlefield, a niece of mine. And then Violet Booth, Mrs. William Booth, another niece. So now, if Mrs. Byron Malott will come forward, I'll have my wife. All right. Then Mrs. David Katzik, will you come forward?
At this time, I wish to thank every one of you for inviting us. We're not very good dancers, but we're really trying. And there's a few Haida words that we know. I know a sentence, and I want one Haida to come up. He knows who he is. Hawit atayat iskundla. Where is he? At this time, we have a little gift for Mrs. Katzik from the bottom of our hearts with all our love. Mrs. Katzik. Thank you.
Did you want to say thank you? Did she want to say thank you? You want to say thank you? Just thank you.
I want to thank you very much.
Now, if Mrs. Malott isn't in the audience, maybe someone could represent her. Mr. Malott, if he is. Then maybe David could represent her. You'll get a kiss.
I'm very happy to present this to Mrs. Malott. Is it Mrs. Malott? Yeah.
I don't think I can.
I'll kiss you for her.
All right. All right. That was a good representation. Well, in behalf of Mrs. Malott, I know that she would be very, very privileged if she were here right now, and I know that she would have appreciated the kiss maybe from Ira and some of the other Tsimshian men that are here this afternoon. So thank you very much. We will present it to her. I appreciate your consideration because a lot of times we men get a lot of recognition for the work that we do. We get paid for the work, but we also appreciate the women who stand behind us very patiently and work with us. You hardly sometimes see her, and I really am privileged this afternoon that you honored my wife in such a fashion. Thank you very much, and honoring also Byron's wife. Thank you.
That's all. I have a list of speakers who will speak to you before we try to entertain you with our dances. But before we go any farther, I just want to tell you that it has been 125 years these are exact years since we abandoned our culture. And it's not going to be easy to revive, but we're going to do the best we could. It's a very good culture. We recognize this more and more, and we're certainly enjoying ourselves. Now, the first person I have on the list of speakers is Mr. Conrad Mather. And while he is on his way, I want to tell you that Mr. Mather is a fellow organizer of the Tsimshian Tribal Association, was the first president of the Ketchikan group. Mr. Mather is a retired teacher, but he is not tired enough. He is still teaching. So I give you Mr. Mather.
Sham git giged. Shidgam Hanan. I just said I addressed first the most important people. This includes all the chiefs, leaders. I addressed them first. This is customary. Then I said next, Shigedam Hananach are the royal princesses, women of very high station. Then the next thing I'd like to do now, in a very Tsimshian traditional way, the next thing I would do is to recognize the people of Git Auk. That's the people of Ak Bay, because we are meeting in Ak Bay. And this is what I have to do, is recognize the Git Auk. And to thank the Git Auk, this means all the people that live in the Juneau area, to thank them for the wonderful food, hospitality, the housing, and everything else. We think you people here in Juneau have done a great job, and I want to thank you. So at this time, I'd like to tell you just what I am doing. I am teaching the Tsimshian language at Valley Park, and we have other teachers there. We have Tlingit and we have Haida, and I teach for about 3 hours, and I feel that the language is very, very important, since this is gathering has a great deal of concern about the preservation of the native language. And the only way we can do it is for all of us to seriously think about how we can preserve it. And there's only one way. We've got to take a great deal of interest in it. And this means the parents, the youngsters, and all. It's going to be really up to us. It's not up to Mr. Mather or Mrs. Shea or Lorena John, who teaches Haida, and Mrs. Shea, who teaches. It's not up to the instructors. It's up to you, the gathering that are present. And we are teaching the language in the public school. And sometime during the program, you'll see one of the students who was in my language class and also in the dance class who will perform. And he is going to do a dance of a Tsimshian song, a chief song, but I will tell a little more about this. And so I would like to take this time to thank everyone, and again, to thank especially the Git Auk. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mather. Now, interspersed with this, I'm going to make a few little comments. As the Toastmaster told you, I have done considerable research, and my research is covered over a period of maybe 40 years. I first had my appetite whetted by my grandfather while I was just a small little boy. So actually, I've been interested in our history for close to 70 years. In a few months, 4 months, I'll be 70. As anthropologists study human existence in North America, they find that the two oldest colonies continuously inhabited were the two villages, Old Metlakatla and Kitkatla. They've been inhabited continuously for 8,000 years. Now, our next speaker will be Mr. John Reese. I'm letting these people pick their own subjects, whatever they want to speak on, and for whatever period they wish to speak. Mr. Reese is the president of the Ketchikan chapter of the Tsimshian Tribal Association and is employed by the Ketchikan School District. Mr. Reese.
I was to talk on the arts, and I wrote it down because I don't quite know the story that well. Although I've been carving, ever since I was in grade school, I've been taught to carve. But there was one thing that you'd have to remember. Religion played a great part in getting rid of our Indian arts and crafts amongst the Tsimshians. But then when I started grade school, we had a principal of Mr. Leonard Allen that had a foresight to bring back the Indian arts and crafts. And I was taught how to carve through the grade schools. Now, I thought I was going to get the interpreter caught here with the Tsimshian language. I don't think he knows it, but I will endeavor to tell you this story of the Tsimshian eagle in our language. Niguan uljoga Tsimshian skulut kada, but again, Heski kana section to Morbachion noch shoria. Volvon vukuab. Rata qalax raqayamgu ni obakhlo hon sa shund. Ni ulturuat kere Tsimshian timgabat sa gomshun. Ni go olda skushubashmiota. I get it some more and drop them shadon uner them gibbet. Then how on the Robalashket? Well, first of all, he never fed the eagles, so this is where I forgot. He the Meganahon adult, Canam dear skig. I get it some more up some shade dawn unea. I'll home it up, no lash get out. Go on ton with a skig. I get him dit tons as a hoigs gomson. The leg of the amoxis bishop as a muta. The hoigs gomson. The canyon the gukti. Skishubashimilta go out Nina Rolasket, the Hona Rolasket. Near skig, Nederment, Jouwans, ja. Zijn een niks in de beept. In de Jouwans gehuurd go. So it will go each time the most touching up to draw the most boxlosa ura. That's that said round the small get to get the whole can show. So how small get I get it naast mijn man, dus op een smeeuwt hij wacht. En dan gaan aan, ja. De niks in de beep. En dat is gegaar, dan gaan het aan. Dat ik al ergens morgen. Ik heb hem niet gaan door, wanneer, ja. En dan zeg ik al, ga niet leggen dat ze me kwamen. Ja, op zo. Wel, dat is niks in de Bijbel gehoord hebben. Je moet de maat gaan leggen. En ik, hier, Am's gebouw, ging ze hem aan. Wij, ze Am's genekt al. Gauw die nu wanneer, zei dan, niks in de Bijbel gehoord hebben. Ja, lukt dit. Dat is heel lastig. Dat heb ik die helemaal gestuurd. Dat nog nu. Zijn genekt dat nog nu dus gehoord, hè. Hoe hij heel erg gekeken naar gekeken. Ja, Haida, naar gaan. Ik niet gaan, ga naar jou eens kijken, daar lag kijken, ja. Nou, ja, gedaan, dus ik ga. Ja, waar gaan? Dat pak gaat. Zeg ik niet zelf, dus ik was gescheken en te rijk, zo, gewoon. Ze hebben ze genekt. Zeg ik, dus ja, zeg ik nog nooit dat ik was. Hoe hij was gescheken. Zeg ik, ja, Haida, dus op als je me hoort, hè. Dan gaat. De manier gewoon, ik ga heel erg gescheken, dat speelt belang. Zeg ik, waar? Zo gaat. We lijken ze hem aan. En dat zei dan, ik kan gaan, dan zag zich gekeken. Ja, hoe leidde de boer gekeken en op de rijk ze meneer. Dat is op net. Met de hems genekt. Zo heel door het rijk zich gekeken. We hielden wanneer ze door het rijk zich gekeken. En niet gewoon door het rijkst. Wie trouw, eulen, teben. En dat spoon. En ik heel duidelijk gegeten wanneer ik door het rijkst. En dan niet. Zeg al, wie hielden wanneer de rijk zich gekeken. Dan heb ik die dag, de woord moet zij doen. Moet dat afstenen. Gelukkig. Zal je wel hulp ook hebben wanneer het kan. Het is een lolgeheims geboden wanneer je daar gekeken. Dat is het gegaan. Oudje, dat ze maakt. Is geboden. Is geheel wanneer ze loggen die lag gekeken. Dan. Nou, gedaan ze die. Neef. Ze kan je gemaakt gaan. Dat laat hij dus mooi, hè. Zo pas vermeld, dan hij kan het aan, die rolt op. Dan houdt. En de pilotje, wilde nog aan, de meneer, zou de loeltje, zo pas vermeld hebben. Dan was ze laat gaan, morgen next, het is het schoolsket. En dan zei je, weet dan niet hoe, hoe rijkst. Ja, ik zeg, gewoon omhoog. Dus je is hem gewoon met Sammy, die daar die heeft gekeken. Ze bedske, ga ik wat. Dat wordt zo mooi, dat ze pas hem joten, dan kunnen we lekker ze maar hebben. Dat kan hem weer heel de money, hem gebeurt. Dat houdt hij nog gaaf mooi. Glamt is hem gelijk storen wanneer, ja. Daarom de meeste in de Bijbel, zelfs de doelsen. Dat je een raar om zich uit te gaan, nog gaaf zo mooi. Dat ze gerne en niks te gaan. Dan zijn we oorlogen. De macht in het aan west, juried. Wij zijn bedskede. Nog altijd hebben ze mooi gedaan, wil hem gewoon hand. Dat moet je ze mooi get. Zijn de doel zijn ze pas vermijden, hè? Daar heb je dit mas schehelde wanneer. Ze zei dat. Wij kunnen de hoepel daar, Lugersene, Schoolska, naar huis morgen. Nou, ik nam de nacht. Dan zijn we uren, gilt, gerde die aan Zune West. Dat zullen we stakken. Zijn we goed, dat allemaal schoolsket. Dat nog nodig. De nekste morgen zelf hoort ik het. De rijk zal gaan, nou je de mensen op de hand. Dat lukt gebeten, maar zwaar, die allemaal schoot gaan. Ze zeggen, net zijn mij, Uren en hoe kan die allemaal naar school gegaan. Dat was schuren master. Dan ga je morgen door te water. Ja. We hielden wanneer, ja. Dat was hoe zacht, ik pas vermoeden. Zet nog nodig, ze morgen daar houd je het op. Ze had raam, dan word je waand, ja. En dan was ze gehoord komen. Dan moet je geld komen, dan Kalja ze pas vermoeden. Wees, dat je gemaakt die aan de kaljapt. Ja, het ook gehoord. Dat je allemaal wat je mooi hebt. Hij zegt, dat je allemaal nodig, dat je pas vermoeden. Dat is nou trouwens. Dan houdt je pas vermoeden. Einde. Schoon hem zo meest, en hem gilgen hem gaan niet in de gewaande. Nou, je gaat gaan. De waardste gaat, kan hem er gaan niet gaan. Nou, je gaat gaan, zo terug. En dat is goed. En mijn waardste is pas vermoeden. Dan is goed, dan is mooi het te kort gaan. Dat het niks gaat. Går naar een school is mooi. En heel Shaban a story go. Thank you.
Thank you, John. It seemed like all of you understood every word. You were so quiet. John just gave a complete account of the young prince who was left behind. This young man, during times of lean food supply, was very generous with the food that at least was his portion. And he would feed the birds, feed the animals, along with his little playmate, a slave boy. From the way the story is told, the boy must have been maybe a little older than maybe 12 years old. But in the olden times, at that age, I imagine they knew how to do many things. So the people left for the spring gathering of foods, and they were angered at having to leave without a supply of food, so they left the boy behind. They left the two boys behind. And they thought, well, they would last so long and then they would starve. But after they left, the animal kingdom and the bird kingdom fed these boys, and there was an oversupply. They received just all kinds of food, and they preserved much of it. So there was not much to be garnered and gathered that year. And so the people didn't have much, those that left. And so they said, I wonder what happened to the boy. So they sent one young person and his wife and child to return and see what had happened. And long before they even reached the old village, they smelled food and they saw oil coming down the beach. And so after they landed, they were fed, and then they, after their strength was replenished, they returned to where the people had moved to. So then they told the story. The chief, who had led the party away from the boy, said, well, let us return. Maybe he will have compassion on us and feed us. They were all hungry and starving to a great extent. So then they paddled back to the community, but before they landed, they stopped, and the chief asked the boy, which was actually his son, if he could return. The boy said, only if you give me all of your wealth. And of course, without food, the chief capitulated. He said, yes, you can have it all. So then the boy turned out to be the chief. That was the story. A beautiful story.
Our acoustics are not the best in this hall, so we'd like to have as much quiet as possible. Our brothers and sisters have a great story for us, and we really don't want to miss any of it. So if you'll try to be quiet in the back there, it would help us up here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Walter. There's another reason why you should be quiet. My voice isn't that strong. Now, our next speaker, who will also choose his own subject, is Mr. John Dalton from Seattle, Washington, chairman of the Tsimshian Tribal Council and president of the Tsimshian Tribal Association of Seattle. Mr. Dalton. Mr. Dalton is a nephew, and he is very active in community affairs in Seattle. John.
Thank you, Ira. Simgiget, Sigedem Hanan, Wilaxigo, Wilawas, and Gyan. Lumam Raka, Hani Tsimshian, Wilhux, Dagua. I don't speak the language too fluently, and I had to mull this over in my mind before I could even come up with it. I hope grammatically correct. I did say that all the Tsimshian people are truly happy that we were included in this very important celebration of the culture. Within the past 2 days, we have been privileged and honored to witness the great traditions of our brothers and sisters of the Tlingit and Haida Nation. We are very happy that Sealaska Heritage Foundation has included us in these celebrations, and I noticed on the side of the building, spirit of unity. We need unity to survive as a people culturally. Our people have no need to go through so-called identity crises that the people in the lower states have. They don't know their background, they don't know where they come from, they don't know their language, they don't know their history. But we don't have to go through that. We have a golden opportunity through the Heritage Foundation to rebuild our culture. It will never be what it was in its glorious past. But we can bring it up to the point where the youngsters coming up will be interested, will understand the culture of the great Tlingit nation, the great Haida nation, and the Tsimshian nation. We are very thankful to the Sealaska Heritage Foundation, not only for ourselves, but for all of us, for this opportunity to continue and learn our great culture and our great traditions. Thank you.
Car BDV 313 is blocking traffic outside. BDV 313.
Thank you, John. Now, as I said, I will intersperse little bits of information. It is true, as Mr. Guthrie indicated in his speech yesterday, that the Tsimshian in the long ago was a very much traveled people. He told you how they traveled to the northern areas, and he left out, due to time, I suppose, that we also traveled to the south, as far as California, where we traded with the people down there, the people at Cape Flattery in Washington, the Macaws, tell of our visits, periodic visits, just like we visited northward periodically, and how we took our grease with us and traded with them. And they came in large, large canoes, was what they always tell me. Now, how large were these canoes? Mr. Guthrie told you 6 kulai, that's 6 times 6. But they were, in some instances, much, much larger than that. There is a canoe in the Museum of Natural History in New York City that is 68 feet, 10 inches long, 8 feet of beam, and 4 feet deep. That was gotten from the Nass River. Now, there are records of canoes reaching 75 feet in length, 10 feet of beam, and 5 feet deep. Those were regular sailboats, I mean, ships. So they traveled far and wide. The people, Chief Seattle's people, when they were having difficulties with the government over their lands, agreed to settle with the United States government only if the United States government would protect them from the fierce tribes from the north, namely the Haida and the Tsimshian. Now, this is in Chief Seattle's treaty. I have several copies of that treaty at home. Now, our next speaker will be Mr. Russell Hayward. Mr. Hayward is involved in the language along with me. I'm involved in history, and he and I work together a great deal. And Mr. Hayward is a former secretary of the Metlakatla Town Council and had been a councilman also for many years. Mr. Hayward, and he will choose also his own subject.
We all start our speech the same way. Shigidamnalach. All your royal people and the pretty ladies, that's what it says. Now, hey, ho. That's the start of a Canoe song. My voice is real bad. I'll do the best I can. That's the start of a Tsimshian Canoe song. And we did not come by several canoes. We came by one white man's canoe. The name of the canoe is Taku. When we got off of the Taku, we got hit by the Taku winds in Juneau. When we came in the nice building here, we were entertained by the dancers from the Taku people. So we've been educated pretty well on Taku. I'm going to have to make this a little shorter than I was going to speak for 2 hours, but I'll have to cut it down. At one time, there were 10,000, they figured there must have been 10,000, thank you, 10,000 Tsimshians or more. And like Mr. Booth says, they traveled a long ways by canoe. They visited Aleutian Islands. And one of the dances we're going to have is part Aleut, one we got from Aleutian Islands. One of the young girls is going to dance later on. And they traveled as far down as the state of California. And they even went out to Hawaiian Islands. They knew the Hawaiian Islands, the people from the Polynesians. It's true that Mr. Booth related to you about Chief Seattle. In 1954, they told about their accounting of the Chief Seattle speech way back in 1848. This was way before Metlakatla, Alaska was settled. 1848 is way back when the Tsimshians were pretty wild yet. So Chief Seattle told his warriors, it's time to lay down our arms and let the long knives, what they call the Union soldiers, camp nearby to protect us from the fierce Tsimshians and the fierce Haidas. Now, the only thing I know about my education in the Tlingit is Dasawe. I don't know what that means, Dasawe. And Haida is the same as Evelyn Littlefield's. Hawit Khataya. No, it so happens that I learned something today. The Tlingits everywhere call us Chetskan. That's the name. That's the nation of Tsimshian, Chetskan. I just found out a little while ago from one of the linguists in Haida that they call the Tsimshians Kilosh. Kilosh, is that it? Means people of the beautiful voices. No, I don't have a very beautiful voice today, but maybe some of the others will show you some singing. What I'm going to do is tell you a story about the raven. I won't have time to, my voice is not too good, so I won't say it in Tsimshian, but I'll tell you in English. how the story goes. My grandmother told me this story from way back, and it's about the fellow named Tsimshian. Tsimshian is the legendary figure of the Tsimshian. Tsimshian. Let's all say it. Tsimshian. There you are. Now you're learning Tsimshian. He is the legendary figure. He is the savior of the Tsimshians in a lot of ways. He can change himself into a human being, into an animal, into a bird. Now, Tsimshian, he walked along the beach one day and he noticed that the tide didn't move. There was no tides at all. It didn't go down, it didn't come up. So he decided to find out why the tide didn't move. So he went to heaven, changed himself to a raven, flew up to heaven, and noticed where the princess, the moon princess, where she lived, and took account of her habits. He came down to a little brook, a little pool, where she made a dipper out of wunach. Wunach, we call it, the skunk cabbage. She folded the skunk cabbage and dipped the water and drank all of it. That's what she did. Now, big old Tsimshian, he was a raven, see, and then he decided he was going to find out a little more about the princess. So he had changed himself into a tree needle. The next time the princess came down to dip some water to drink, he jumped into the dipper so that the princess drank all of the water, tree needle and all. So the story goes that after 9 suns went by, there was no moon. Remember, no moon. A little baby was born to the princess. This was Tsimshian. And when he was a baby, he retained all his faculty. He knew what was going on. He had the mind of a grown person. He was a magician. He knew a lot of things. So as a baby, he noticed that the little old lady, that the mother of the princess, hid a little box. The box was open. There was a great big white ball in the box, a real bright ball. And Tsimshian noticed that, so he wanted to get a hold of that ball. Now, it so happened that one day the little old lady told the young girl to go get some wood. We're almost out of wood here. You'll have to go get some wood. And the young lady made all kinds of excuses. You know how young girls are. She says, I can't go. I got to watch the baby or one thing or another. She didn't want to go. So the old lady put her balan on her belt, dressed to go get some wood. So the old lady left the house, and she was the one that was watching that box. She wouldn't let anybody come near it. Then when the little old lady left the house, big old Tsimshian, who was the baby, remember, he's the baby, he started making all kinds of racket there. He wanted the ball. He indicated he wanted to play with that white ball. But the princess said, no, it's hawat. Tsimshian word, hawat, forbidden. You can't go near the ball. But he made such a racket. He was hollering so loud that the princess finally gave in and brought the box, gave it to the baby. The baby rolled the box on the floor, and it was, he was happy. He was crawling around behind the ball. As soon as the princess looked the other way, he changed himself into a raven again, picked up that ball and took off through the window. Now, without white man's computer and all those light year measurements, you know where to hang the moon. So it's where it hangs today, so that you and I can go get some clams, we can go get some kaboch, other seafoods. That's the story of the raven. And all us ravens, I'm a raven myself, all us ravens are very industrious, resourceful people. Now, what I want to relate to you, all you ravens, it was really something to know that this program was coming off in Juneau for me, because I knew quite a few years now that the culture of the Indian culture is one of the endangered species. They predict it'll end in 20 years or even less. The language isn't going to be no longer with us. I think it's up to us to do something about it. In order to preserve or to carry on a culture, a philosophy, what have you, it has to be written in a way that people can read it. It has to be illustrated in booklets so that you'll know what the meaning of the words are, what they're describing, whether it's a fish or owl or other items that people want to learn. Too many times, I like to add this, too many times the white man's linguists, and hope there's nobody around here, people that are teaching the natives their language is more or less confusing the issue a lot. I know that. They're not, they put on the alphabet that you think you should use, and that's it. No, I happen to know this. The people in Point Barrow chose not to hire a linguist to do their language. Their elderly people got together with one of the school teachers that did a very good job. And I also happen to know that the people of the Saxman, the Ketchikan area, did the very same thing. One of the ladies is here, Esther Shea, is the leading Tlingit language teacher in Ketchikan. And she tells me that the elderly people, Joe Williams and the rest of them, got together. They devised their own alphabet the way they think it should be written. So in Malakala, we're doing the same thing. The elderly citizens have gotten together, and we have an alphabet we know it's going to work. But it needs a lot of time, a lot of planning, and a lot of money. Hope you people have some money to give us someday. Anyway, before I end, we're going to later on bring on some of the music we have here, and the singers, and the rest of the program will be coming on, and my voice is giving out. So I'd like to thank each and every one of you for honoring us with the invitation that we are here. Thank you.
Thank you, Russell. The next person I'm going to call on is the oldest one in our group. He was introduced to you by Mr. Jeff David last night. And before I call on Mr. Ryan, I want to tell you that Mr. Ryan originally was from Canada, from Port Simpson, came to Metlakatla as a young man, steeped with the knowledge of our past, and a very conscientious man, served in the community council for many, many years, and was later chosen to be our mayor, served 2 terms. And Mr. Ryan is probably the only person ever, I know so far, he's the only person who was taken in to be a United States citizen by a vote of the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C., and also the Senate. No other person in the history of this country, I don't think, will ever have that privilege or that honor, because even Einstein had to go through the regular procedures of becoming a United States citizen. I give you Mr. Charles Ryan.
Thank you. My dear friends, I'm very happy to be here today, although I don't do any dancing anymore, no jitterbug and nothing. But I'm very happy because Ira called me to come along with the group and commit myself to a certain extent to all of you. That was a great day, it's about the greatest day of my life, when Congress, both the House of Representatives, signed by Bankhead, went to the Senate, signed by Vice President Garner, and then to the White House, to Delano Roosevelt, to sign Charles A. Ryan to be a citizen of the United States of America. I'm really proud of this position that I have from Congress. Now, I will not take much of your time. We've reviewed the actions and everything. So I will interpret, or I'll mix my talk for both Tsimshian and Amkshiwa. You know that word, Amkshiwa? That word, Amkshiwa, came to us when the white people brought it along with them in Hudson's Bay Company. And the meaning of Amkshiwa is, you know, Amkshiwa, he has a pipe in his mouth. And then maybe one person asks another, and they say, "Nta Amkshiwa." There's a can of tobacco. So the white people are known to be can of tobaccos. Now, in the Tsimshian language, when they have a gathering like this, whoa, I'm going to interpret a few words. When they have Lulgit is where you sit down and have a table there all around the room. That's Waplulgit, like this building here, Waplulgit, where we have your feast. And of course, the Bartlats is out of our line most of the time. But when the head man, the leader of Kinachangiik or any of these tribes, they follow up on the wording. They don't let anybody stand at the door. One man stands in the back seat here, and he calls out, "Gi, Gi, Samoyed, Gi." That is, this way, come this way, and I'll seat you. Now, the other thing that I really observe and try to pass on to my children is the word to a younger person. If I do something out of the way, my grandfather would look at me sometimes and just stare at me for a while. I can just feel that stare going through my life. What did I do? What did I do? And then I remind myself I've done something wrong. And then when he's through, he'd say, "Kilo." That's another big word in our language. That's all he'll say is, "Kilo." That's enough. Stop. Don't do that again. So that word sticks to me. Now then, another thing that I never forget is that word that I hear every day. That's what we use today. Tsamat. Tsamat. And then equal to that word tsamat is eh. That's the word we use at home when we enjoy our meal. Now, if it's something like fruit or something like that, we say, Tsimshian. If it's a dish of something on the table, we say, eh. Nevertheless, there's very, very few of us, just a handful of us left. Even my own children, they're out of it. They don't understand me when I talk to them. I'm sure in the language now. But we try, like the senior citizens. We have our get-together every day, and then we enjoy ourselves, and then we feel better after getting together for a couple of hours. We have our luncheon, and then we have our stories or whatever. But nevertheless, we are trying our best to retain our Somalia. That's our language, is Somalia. You know, years ago, the choir of the William Duncan Memorial Church Choir made a trip to the Pacific Coast all the way down to Los Angeles. We sang in every church on the way down. But we were invited in Vancouver, BC, where the cathedral was full. And during intermission, the preacher that came along with us, he told the people there that we are Tsimshians, and we're going on a touring trip, singing trip. And we did sing a couple of numbers in that church there. And one man right in the middle of the auditorium, he stood up and he said, Luam Olo, Noel Niasum, and that's Mr. Duncan. That's all in Tsimshian, a white man talking Tsimshian in a white man's church. Now, all the way down to California and back, we sang a couple of numbers and then we would speak. And nevertheless, those were happy days for us. And I'm pretty sure that the eventful days that we've had here for the past few days, we're really enjoying ourselves. And then on top of that, we meet our friends. And then part of my family are living here, right here in Juneau. My granddaughter, I've never seen her for so many years. And then two of them are here with us today. So without taking any more of your time, it gives me a great pleasure to say thank you and the best of luck to each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Now, during the planning meetings that we held, it was mentioned by several that we should. No, I'm gonna complete what I had started. Wait. What?
Just for a little while you finish.
Go ahead.
At this time, we would like to have Jeff David come forward, please.
He was our lost brother. We had real lots of children all together, and we just found him again. He was with us, and he's just as crazy as us. What do you say?
We've adopted him.
We really did.
You Tsimshians are short.
I'd like to respond to this. It's quite an honor. I've known these lovely ladies from Metlakatla for a good many years. And when I came to Metlakatla, their father and their mother more or less adopted me without the proper channels. But some of you know their brother Tom Atkinson and Romy Atkinson. We played ball in Metlakatla for 8 years, and we had a real good fellowship and brotherhood. And I'd like to also acknowledge this on the Kagwantan side. According to my historian, Mr. Willis Peters, he says that we, as Kagwantan, from our area, was amongst the Tsimshians years ago, and this is one of the names, Tsimshian. So at this time, I'm very proud. When these ladies get back to Metlakatla, they'll probably send me a name, COD.
No, we already have. What was it?
What's the name?
You just said you. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
What was it? You just said it. Above. No. Above. No, it wasn't that. Oh, Bilhah. Yes, our brother Bilhah. We just found him again. We lost him for many years. And we're just so glad to see him. So we'll give him back his name.
We also have a song. Show me the way to go home.
Thank you.
And go back.
Thank you. Yeah, I go back to my job.
I started to say that I have to be careful. That during the planning sessions, the men felt that during these festivities that we should hear from the women folks as well as the men. So at this time, I call on Mrs. Frances Duncan to represent our women, and she'll probably tell you the place of the woman in Tsimshian life. Mrs. Duncan.
I'm going to smile first. I haven't seen a speaker up here that smiled and just stood like this. Well, this will be the beginning. It took me 2 weeks to learn this. Shemogit, Shirgimnech, Ligakiget. And I don't see him here. This was meant for Governor Hammond and his wife and the workers up at the city building. So I'll have to dedicate this to the president of this Sealaska and the one that sponsored this. I am certainly glad to be here. This is something new for me. You know, I'm not used to this. I do better without it. My voice is strong. This is something new to me. You folks notice that I have a Haida hat on. Well, I have little Haida in me. I have everything in me. My grandfather, David Leask, was picked up in Masset, I think, by the missionaries. And he was sent to Victoria to school. He was a small boy. That's my grandfather. And then, in the meantime, the men over at British Columbia, every time a ship would come in, they'd row their daughters out. That's no lie. Because my great-grandfather had 2 daughters, and he was a big one. He rowed 2 daughters out to the ship. And I think he was planning on getting a gun, but I think they only gave him an axe. And that's where I came in. My father's father was a Jew. So my father often told my grandmother, why didn't you pick out an Irishman or a Swede? Well, the girls, they have, you know, the girls long time ago, they have to mind. And then his sister was somebody else. But the man that she picked out had some birds up here on his coats and all over his hat in gold, and his buttons were full of gold, everything birds. But years ago, he was going to come back. My dad was already born. It was just the cutest thing that, you know, Jew and Indian are good looking. And when he came back, in the meantime, Father Duncan came in and civilized my people. We were in a bad way, you know. They said when he got off the ship, you know what my grandmother's people did? My grandmother's full Indian. When this wonderful man walked from the beach, and they got this killip, that's their rope, and they put it along the beach like that, and here comes this man, the man that was going to civilize them. He walked up and you could see all eyes amongst the bushes. They were all looking ready with a bow and arrow. They're going to shoot him down. So he came up, and these crazy boys, they tightened that, and he fell. That's how he won the Indians over. He won the Tsimshians over that. He didn't get mad. He got up and he brushed his clothes and picked his little bag, and he looked at those crazy Indians and he waved at them like that. He didn't get mad. And then the soldiers, there was a fort there. The soldiers were ready. Anytime the Indians do that, the soldiers just mow them down, kill them all. But this time they didn't, because Father Duncan said, no, don't. Well, he won the Indians over because the young Indian bucks didn't do anything. They were so surprised because he smiled at them. Well, that's where then on my grandfather's side, I just found out that he had a little Scotch in him. And on my grandmother's side, he had French, I think. So I'm just everything. And I have no clan. And I know on my hat there's a killer whale, and I think it must have been an elephant at the back, or I don't know what's in front. It's just full of animals all around here. So my dad adopted me. My dad's mother was a killer whale, and that's the reason why I have this killer whale cave. Nobody would adopt me, but my grandmother, and I'm killer whale now. And I want to start this, I want to learn this. My subject was supposed to be teenagers. See, each one of us were giving something to say. And he just gets up and he said, oh, say just what you want. After practicing for a long time what to say, I study up in teenage and study in teenage. And how the girls were raised years ago, that's what my girls, see, my mother died when I was 4 years old. So I was raised by my grandmother, my dad's mother. And his sister, the one that went out to the ship with her, she passed away after she gave birth to a baby boy. And that baby boy, the captain of the ship, loaded the boat and gave it to them a year after that. And he said, this is a cute, oh, his father was French, he was cute. And he picked up this little boy, he said, name him Napoleon. So amongst all the Indians, he was the only Napoleon. So I told my nephews up there, Buddy and them, I said, Oh, folks, there's a lot of high people here. I think we're higher than everybody. We have Napoleon in our family. So each one of us, I was supposed to talk to the teenagers, to the young girls. And there's a story I'm going to tell you folks there. I'm going to try and talk fast. Is it all right? Because I don't want you folks to sit there and be tired of me. And this story I'm going to tell you is about a young girl. You know, in the olden days, my grandmother said that a young girl don't pick out her own husband, or a young boy. It has to be the parents. The boy has to come and show how he can get seal and food. And it's between the two parents. They talked about it, then they get married. So and all the girls, they have to learn they have to learn how to cook. They have to learn how to make baskets. And there's a lot of things they have. They have to learn how to comb their hair every day and put seal oil on so it'll be nice and straight, you know. So this is the story I'm going to tell you folks. Now this is the truth. This is what, I know my grandmother never lies, so this is the truth. And this happened way up past, just before William Duncan came and picked us savages, you know, before he collect all the savages amongst the coast. This young couple were married, and he's the one the years ago they have only one house, and it's not petitioned off, and one corner is their place. That's where they slept. This young couple. They slept, but I guess we should call it the bridal corner, you know, right in that corner there. So the boy was a good worker, and they have a little girl. The little girl was 2 years old now, and everybody was staying in this big house. So he went out one day this was towards fall. The olden people, my people, I'm from the snow people, from Hartley Bay. I'm not from down this coast, I'm from further north. My people are, they call us snow people. And that's my grandmother. And this fellow went out. This fellow went out to get seal in his canoe. And he didn't come back, and the people wondered, what's the matter with him? He didn't come back. So early the next day there, his boat was upside down in front of the town. And people were just they knew he drowned it. Something happened to him. He drowned it. So the woman went there, and for a long time, this wife just couldn't get over that. Remember, she's only been married a little over 2 years. And she was just broken-hearted. And she'd go and she'd get on a rock, and right there is where the husband was drowned. She'd go there and she'd stand. Now this is her song. I'm not a good singer, but this is her song. And she stood on this rock here and looked down, and she said, she says, oh, my heart. See, her husband was her heart. She says, oh, my heart, oh, my heart. And she turned around. She'd go back to her place. In the meantime, she was demoted from that corner. The big chief has some more boys, and the big chief said, well, you have to leave your corner. My son is gone. And get a little mat and sleep somewhere. But you have a job to do. You get me fresh water every day. You get me real good water. And about a mile from where these people live, there's a nice little well there, real clear water. And there's a tree over the well like this. And a branch was sticking out here. And we have a basket made out of bark. It's waterproof. I couldn't find mine the last minute. I have a little one. So this young girl would take her little daughter and walk up every day to get this fresh water for the chief. And she couldn't just go right up and talk to the chief. He was too big of a man. So what would you call that in Tsimshian? Yeah. He said that she has to tell what she wants to the chief. And if the chief wants anything, the chief would go tell him. And then it'll go to her. Messenger, like a messenger boy, I guess. So I don't know how many times she walked up that hill every day to get water for the big chief. And one day it was so clear, it was towards spring. She had a little girl. She wouldn't leave the girl home. She looked down there then, and you know how it is on a nice little pond of water. There's always leaves dropping in there, little trees. Always a lot of things. So she'd do this way to clear that, so she can get her water. She'd go clear that around there. And the third day, they went up there again. She couldn't believe her eyes. She looked. There was a man's face in there. His face was full of hair and long, and it's just all over. In the meantime, the people at the village heard this. Every night there was somebody down the beach cracking up shells. And the chief would get, with the big chief's assistant would get out, "Who's down there? Who's down there?" They did, but they kind of thought it was a bear. Somebody jumped around there. And then the people that slept at the bridle corner, every night I'd hear scratching like this, scratching around there. And they thought it was an animal, and they know it was an animal scratching around there. But this girl looked down there, and her mother told her, "You see anything like that, if you don't jump up and get excited, just hold yourself. Be a lady. Don't holler and ask for help." So she didn't. She looked down. There's a face in that little well, in a little pond there. And she didn't say anything. She just grabbed the little girl, turned around, and walked home. Give the water to the cook, I guess. So she couldn't get to the chief. She couldn't get to go and tell the chief this. And finally she found this messenger man. She said the second day she went up there was that face again, looking at them, and she didn't dare look up because her mother told her not to. She didn't dare look up. She just looked down. And the wind was blowing a certain way. When this fellow was young, he was burnt, and he had a mark right here. And the wind was blowing a little, and it blew the hair aside, and she recognized the mark. She knew that was her husband. So she turned back, and she told the messenger man. They didn't believe her. They thought she was crazy. Nobody believed her at all. So the third day, one man went up with her to get the water. And this girl looked in and smiled at this man in there and looked up, and she told him, and look down. And the little girl said, "That man smiled at me." I knew it was a man, all right. So she turned back and told the messenger man, and the messenger man told the chief. The chief says, "Well, we'll get ready." So they did. They had all the young boys to get good-sized rocks and pile them up on the side of the house. And they went and cleaned the good-sized sticks there. I don't know how many sticks they cleaned up and have them there. And they hauled seaweed from the beach, and they hauled kelp from the beach, and then they got moss from the woods. Oh, they were all ready. They were going to catch this fellow. And they said, we'll wait. So at night, they dug a hole same size as a grave, a big hole by the side of the house. See, that man knew that was his corner there. That was his bridal corner. Made a big hole there. They didn't put no rocks in, but they heat the rocks alongside the house, got everything all ready, and they got bear meat skin so the fellow won't burn. They had all, then they cover this hole up. And they had some young bucks ready outside to grab them. Well, that fella came at night. Oh, that girl didn't go to the well that day. So I guess maybe that man wondered, well, maybe the little girl is sick, or that's his daughter, maybe the little girl is sick. Because if the chief didn't kill that boy, well, he would have lost his rights. Everybody would look down on him. So they listened. Sure enough, they heard some branches cracking quite a ways off. Yes, he's coming. And when he got close to the house, he just went down. Then all these must be 10 or 15 fellows came out and covered that up and just held. They said about 10 young fellows went there, but that fellow was so strong he almost got away. But they covered him up. Then they had these, the chief's wife had this, we call it hootens. It's some kind of a herb. That's why you folks will never see a bald-headed Indian. They use this. It's for hair tonic. My grandma used to get. Oh, I used it lately. Remember last winter when Alaska was full of bugs? Well, they use that. It's a poison root, and the leaves are big like that. I know you folks have them here. Well, you take the root. And you clean it, scrape it. That's poison. You scrape that, and then you take it. My grandma used the coffee can. She put holes in there, and you scrape. And what come out of there looked like milk. That's what come out. I used it too last winter. What come out of there looked like milk. And I don't know how many those people fixed. They fixed a lot of those. Then when that's done, you take that, you mix a little Ulligan grease with it, because Ulligan grease is not poison. It can cure anything. You mix it up. Well, they got that ready here. And then they got this sharp, it isn't pine, it's spruce. Well, they finally, all these men got a hold of this fella here. And they took this kelp, they tied him up. They tied him up real good. And then they took this spruce, this sharp, and they took this sharp, it's big blue sea things from the beach, hagun. Yeah, we call it hagun. It's big, it's their blue. And that's their knife, you know. So they got everything ready. They scrape his hair. His hair was just like this. And then one fellow took the spruce and just hit his head until it bleeds. Blood was just coming out. So he just died. My grandma said she was about 6, 7 years old. And she said, this fellow just died. He was just gone. After they hit him on the head like that with the spruce. Then they took this this herb, then they rub it in all over. Then they wrap his head. He said the man slept for this one dark night, another dark night, and the 3 dark nights. Then he woke. That means 3 days. He woke up and he looked around and looked at his wife and he was himself. He got well. So after he got well, and his father had a big potluck, big dinner, invited the whole town. His son came back. And that's the reason why the Indians believe in this. There's such a thing as they're still here today. This big foot you see that walking around, it's from the fellows that went overboard, and they follow fire. They said even now, even if you go overboard and you're cold, and when you come out you see something burning, then you follow that. Then by the time you get there, it moved, and you keep on following. And Tsimshian said, yeah, the luck is that you chase that fire, then they just go wild up in the woods. So there was one man from here, he was in the office here, and he asked about it, and I told him, Indian, our Tsimshians believe in this, my grandmother told me. That's the reason why they have Bigfoot now. You see, they walk around, it's on the paper, and the people that are further south, those big one, you know, they're the white people that went, Amchiwa, that went overboard a long time ago, and they're safe, but they just wild. And that's the reason why I wanted to tell this. And that woman, if she didn't mind, you know, why she would have lost her husband, he would have ran away and ran up to the woods. So it shows to be a nice girl. Nowadays, the girls, if they want to get married right now, no matter who they are, they'll marry them. No matter, even if your mother say, no, don't, you wait, well, we'll see, we'll get acquainted with, oh no, then the mother will say, you wait. And if the parents is against it, nowadays, this is today, if the parents is against who are they going to marry, then they go out of their way, they get pregnant. That's what they do now. So they didn't do that long time ago. You listen to your mother and you listen to your father. And they're the ones that will see that you have a good husband. So that's the reason my subject was supposed to be about young teenagers. And I better not talk too long because it's after 4. And I just wanted to say this. But I want you to folks know that if anybody can adopt me today if they want to. Thank you.
Thank you, Francis. And the long ago, after old Metlakatla was established, it was quite a city. It was the first place on the coast to really have facilities outside of Sitka. They had docking facilities, they had a huge big cannery there, and ships would dock there, and it wasn't long before Father Duncan saw the possibilities of people making extra money from selling artifacts. So he encouraged the people there to make miniature totem poles. That's where it started. They made little short poles and other artifacts. Now, art originally was carried to the fine point, beyond probably what we know it as today, because they even had right and left-handed spoons. This is a right-handed spoon. See how it's crooked? If you hold it with your right hand, it's right. You hold it with your left, it'll spill. So they carried it to the fine point. I just thought I'd show you because there's a great deal that we need to learn yet to redevelop our art. Now this spoon is a very, to me, a very prized spoon. It was given by William Duncan in the year 1895 to some visitors at Metlakatla. There were 6 visitors to visit him. And so he wrote, they wrote their names on it. Then he wrote a little bit of his history, how he arrived at Metlakatla from England, and it gives the dates here. This is a very prized piece of artifact. And now for our last speaker, I thought we'd include a young person, so we'd round out our representation. I'm calling on Mr. Richard Benson, or rather Richard Stone, who comes from the Benson family. His grandparents were Mr. and Mrs. Ted Benson, who many of you know. His grandmother, his mother, that is half Tsimshian and half Tlingit. His Tlingit name is Hoskoks, whatever that is, you people probably know. Good or bad, that's his name. So I'm calling on Mr. Stone. His father was the late Dr. Chester Stone. His mother is Theodora Stone, formerly Theodora Benson, and they were cousins of mine. And Theo, as we call her, was Teacher of the Year in the United States 2 years ago. So this young man has a background in education, his father being an educator, Dr. Stone. Mr. Stone, would you come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Booth. I know everybody's been coming up and saying, oh, I wanted to speak for an hour, but I'll make it brief, and then they end up speaking for an hour. Well, this one really will be brief. When I came here 3 days ago, I came into this auditorium, and they told me the Haidas sit here, the Tlingits sit here, and the Tsimshian sit over there. And I thought to myself, well, where does that leave me, being both Tsimshian and Tlingit? I guess I had to sit in the aisle in between the Tsimshians and the Tlingits. The word for someone who's both Tsimshian and Tlingit is a Tlinsian. And the word for a Tlingit and a Haida is a Tlinaida. And the word for a Tsimshian and a Haida is a high Tsimshian. And finally, when you have a Tlingit, a Tsimshian, and a Haida, that's a Kling Shimai. No, seriously now, we have been gathered here for a very important and meaningful reason. We have been gathered to preserve and maintain our wonderful Northwest Coast culture. This is a culture that's as rich as any culture in the world. Any culture in the world. I realize that mainly elders have been speaking here, and I'm deeply honored and I'm very proud to have been asked to come speak and say a few words. And there's a good reason for this, because I have a message to the elders as well as to the young people here. And that message is that there are many elders out here who have great knowledge of our culture and our ways, and they are willing to teach the young people about our culture and our ways. And I want to say that me as a young person, and there are other young people here who want to be taught those ways. We want to be taught by you, our elders, not by white anthropologists. Because after all, where did the anthropologists get their information? It is you who know the languages. It is you who know the songs and dances. It is you who knows the history. And it is you who we want you to teach. So let us get together in more social gatherings so we can exchange these ideas and we can learn. We can learn from our elders. About a year ago, I was involved in a nationwide Indian organization whose purpose was to foster Indianism. So we can do that also. We could do that by having social gatherings like this. And at this time, I want to thank the Sealaska Heritage Foundation and anyone else who was involved in making this great gathering happen. Thank you very much. And also, we must get the young people involved in these events. And we must have programs. We must develop programs where the young people can get involved in these events. You know, my generation, people in their 20s, and the generation before me, people in their 40s and 50s, have been intermarrying with the other tribes. So we must preserve all the tribal culture as one. We must make a move, take a step together as one in order to preserve this great culture that we have. If there were any differences, let us put these differences aside at this time so we can make this move together as one people, one nation. And we can do this with involvement. Elders and young alike, we must all get involved now. Now or never, because time is running short. So at this time, I want to say from my heart that I love what you people are doing here, and I love you all for what you are doing. So I thank you. Let's see if I could do this. Gunachchis. All right? Ho ho. And to my Tsimshians, Dimelkitnidsen. I said, I'll see you folks later, and God bless you all.
I don't want to leave the hall without having recognized Mrs. Clunot, with whom I had a very enjoyable visit 2 years ago. I spent one whole afternoon with her and evening. After she found out who I was, then she scolded me. She said, why did you abandon the arts? After you taught us, then you abandoned it. What happened to you? I had no answer for a while until I explained that it wasn't intentional. It was that we stepped into a new life, and that new life was without the art. And I think life without art is not as good as life with art. So I think we're going to get back into it. So now we will attempt to do our best with our dance program. But before I do, I want to tell you that as indicated by the young man, that the anthropologists had been studying your lives, but they've fallen short in many ways. There are many reasons for this. They come out as individuals with limited funds, maybe limited time, maybe limited ability, or maybe the wrong approach, and they would irk people, and so people would turn away from them. And then They would seek information, oftentimes from people who do not really know. I know this for a fact, that one lady who spent a lot of time at Metlakatla sought information from a young girl that we called a half-wit. Our history is not complete. And for this reason, we need to get to the bottom of our history. I have searched far and wide, and I find many areas that have not been recorded. And I've been doing what I could. And now, to further substantiate this, we're told, and you're told, that there are 3 branches of the Tsimshian nation. I think many of you have read this or have heard of it. But actually, this is not so. There are 4 divisions within the Tsimshian nation. One almost became extinct. They were the nomadic group. But I have here this afternoon almost the last of that group. And I will introduce to you Mr. Reginald D'Angeli, who will explain a little bit about what happened to the group I'm referring to, the Tzitzout, we call them.
Long distance for Jim Arkush. Long distance for Jim Arkush.
This is Mr. D'Angeli, the last of the Tzitzouts, but he's been very busy raising a big family and instructing his girls to do likewise.
Thank you, Mr. Booth. And Luam Qadi, this is a little different dialect from the regular Tsimshian you heard of my greetings to you. Some Luam Qadi will say Qadi Gidagans and Haida Bagat Alaska and British Columbia. Some Luam Qadi will oxy and ski some anoch the mox ski. The by them to explain this. I will my ancestors, how they almost disappeared. Thank you, all the elders and the chiefs of the Tlingit and Haida from both nations, for allowing us to come and participate in this very historic occasion. I feel very honored. I feel deep in my heart to be here and of what happened to my people almost. So to give a brief history of them, I was called on suddenly about it, and I didn't have so much time to research and memorize it, so I'll have to read what happened on a piece of paper I have here. The Tzitzawat people were the 4th branch of the Tsimshian nation and were my ancestors who lived in the Portland Canal, Alaska area many, many years ago. That is the very southern tip of Alaska Panhandle. There were nomadic people who lived off the land as they moved and traded with the seasons. They traded with the Stikine River people and the Tsimshian people on the Nash and Skeena River, also with the coastal Tsimshians and Tlingit of the whole southeast general area. The reason I'm telling about the brief history of these people is that the younger generation of these people later on did not listen or heed the elders of the tribe of their culture and heritage. So the once proud 4th branch of the Tsimshian nation almost disappeared due to intermarriage with different tribes as they traded. So today, the language and history is little known to me and some of my family. We are doing research and history on this and the Tsimshian dialect, which is very little different from the other Tsimshian dialects. I was contacted by an anthropologist language expert from the University of Alaska on this matter. I had a grandmother who spoke this dialect fluently and knew the history, but passed away before I learned very much from her. I told the anthropologist that. I am very happy about this three-nation gathering of Southeast and Interior Alaska and British Columbia. My people's history emphasizes the importance of the elders and culture heritage study, and the young people can learn and keep up the culture of their own people today. So I'm very proud to say I have a son who married in Skeena River and settled down there. He moved over there and now is a master carver, and he teaches Indian culture in the school there. And it makes my heart very warm to know this. He carves 50-foot totems and smaller ones, and he's picking up the culture, and he told me he's going to do a lot of research on our ancestors' culture, so maybe in a year or two, or maybe 10 years, it's such almost a lost thing. So he'll be my guiding light on this matter. Another thing I'm very happy about this thing is about my grandfather up in Portland Canal many, many years ago. When they first started the boundary lines between, a long time ago, many years ago, there was no such thing as a boundary line. I mean, you didn't have to ask the white man to go visit your relatives across the bay. So anyway, my grandfather, they got him to be the guide and advisor for the Navy during the survey and marking of the boundary lines between Canada and U.S. in Portland Canal area. He was rewarded with a treaty that guaranteed with freedom of movement and land on the upper Portland Canal and his surviving relatives to this day, as long as the flag of the United States flies over U.S. Later on, these original treaties with the U.S., there was a few floating around, but they weren't the original. They were just copies, and they didn't have the seal of the United States on it. Later on, the original treaty with the U.S. was found in Washington, D.C. in the Capitol Archives of treaties with other nations by Ira Booth while he was in Washington, D.C., which had the seal of the U.S. on them, which I am happy to possess today. So I had an uncle. I remember a long time ago, my grandfathers and my uncles, they knew how to speak both Tsimshian and Tlingit language very, very good. I know some of the old-timers here remember Herbert Burton from the Kitchkan area, and he spoke the language very well, and he was the one that raised me. So in closing, I want to thank you very much for inviting us, and I'm very happy to share this information with you, and thank you for the fine food, and boy, especially the Indian food here we had the last 3 days. And thank you very much, and later on I'm going to make my children and grandchildren do a little dance. Thank you very much, and good night, cheese. Thank you.
Very difficult song, but we can only do a small portion of it. We did this at Valley Park School with Esther and Lorena, and she knows how hard it is to learn. So we're just going to use practically the rhythm and just probably the couple phrases. We hope someday that we'll put it in its entirety. It's a very difficult song. It's called the Shquilanda Kwan. We don't know exactly. We think that Kwan might be Haida, which stands for many. And it's a song that we've used in Valley Park, and Reggie is going to introduce his family who are going to dance it.
Thank you, Conrad. And this is the future Tsimshian that's going to expand our nation once again later on, I hope. His name is Aaron Wagner. And to my right there is Jen. And the other one here is Arlene. And the young boy on her right there is another of my who I hope will expand our nation one of these days. And his name is Michael Rife. Thank you.
Will Mr. Hayward come forward, please? Russell Hayward.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is something to keep time with. It's not to kill people with. Keep time. That's what it is. I'm going to clear my voice somehow. This is an initial performance of the group here. We got together not too long ago to practice some dancing, and we're going to show you some of the steps that we know were handed down, the songs that we know and heard handed down to the Tsimshians. At this time, we're going to show you how proud we are to be getting together at a big potlatch like this, and we didn't have time to prepare any fancy headgear that will pull palkwa to show you that we're at peace with the world. Palkwa is the eagle down that comes out of the headgear when they're dancing, the ceremonial dance that says we're at peace with you. And we don't have the headgear, but at this time we will present the welcome song. Sa pataskan, the mat is down. You are welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, I will introduce a few of these people that I know by name. The one that is leading is Uxpu. Step up. Evelyn Uxpu is her name. The one on the drum, Bill Gibbon. Bill Gibbon. And we have with us Shigeramna, Tsimshian. Tsimshian, here she is. Gach, Shuek, all the Hana. Gach, Shigeramna Agua. There she is. Qausam Hayatsk. Tachkum Wa, Hana Agua. Qausam Hayatsk. Samgar, Samgar. All the Shigeramna. Samgar. Clara. Leons, you call this Shigeramna. Adawal Niux, we call the Shigeramna, Niux. Als op qua, ik sleesjes, we do it, we meanum. We step forward, we do it, Tratoa square. My name is Weedow, Big Ice, they call it, Glacier Bay up here in Juneau, Big Ice, okay? Now the next number we're going to have. You know, we've told you that the Tsimshians are all over the country here. Some of them are, a lot of them are as far as Florida, 48 states, Canada, Alaska, everywhere. The Tsimshians can multiply so fast, we have to have a love song for you to listen to. So at this time, we'll have a story where the girl is going to Fort Simpson was the original name, Fort Simpson. And she is wondering if her lover will be there, and we're going to sing the song. That's the story of the love song. In between the acts here, we have a short little dance here showing the squash. Bushquash is the blue jay. The blue jay dance emphasizes the appetite of the blue jay for wild cranberries. That's why the Haida is called the Tsimshian, the people with the beautiful voices. Now the next presentation we have, outstanding in the Mary, the Tsimshian is the first boat that came from Boston all the way around Cape Horn, all the way around to see Malakala. The Boston boat, Boston is the name of it, Tsimshian. Boston, boat from Boston. Now for the main attraction of the evening, and if we complete this one, it's a little bit complicated. If we complete it, we'll come back again next year. The first moon of the year is in January. It starts January 25th in the white man's calendar. That's the first moon for the Indian nations. The second moon starts in February. It was the second moon when a family that had $4, the $4 decided to canoe all the way up north, 25 miles away, to see their father, see if he had some fresh food for the family. This is the story about the $4 and their canoe.
Some of the sounds will be simulated on recording. And the drum beat and the singing far in the distance will be that of the spirits of the grandparents who had gone on beyond.
Let's drag the canoe
My fault. But then usually follow-ups are my fault. I will start with wildlife entering the scene.
Everybody's going to sing the happy song. and gentlemen, this is the happy song of Tsimshian. You're welcome. Come on aboard. Come on up. Ladies and gentlemen, this ends the program for this afternoon, the Tsimshians. Next year, we're going to bring the magicians and make some people disappear.
Got some power here. One announcement. The management has put out an order for a wrecking truck. There's several cars right out there in front blocking. Woo, what a dance. Blocking the entrance here, and they have ordered a tow truck. So if your car is out in front here, and if it's blocking traffic, it'll be towed away. Woo. I have some dignitaries while the Huna group is getting ready. I'd like to make an introduction or two. I'd like to introduce to you at this time the Bureau of Indian Affairs Area Director of Alaska, Jake Lestenkoff. Right there, and his beautiful wife, right there. Stand up. Stand up. And Al, before he goes in to get, I have a gentleman here. He's the local A&B president, Juneau, camp number 2. Al McKinley, right there at the end of the platform here, right there. And of course, we have our First Lady of the Alaska Native Sisterhood, my first cousin, Emma Whitmark, Grand President of the NS. Give her a hand. I have one more, ladies and gentlemen. Introductions are not complete unless we recognize this wonderful lady. I have been acquainted with her all my life,
and she's quite a lady. She has won many, many, many awards. I'm not going to go into that, but I'm just going to introduce her as President Emeritus, Mrs. Mildred Sparks. You here? Stand up, please. Is she here? There she is, Margaret Thomas, the daughter. Thank you. There's some short Tlingits, too. I just wanted to say a few words on this last song. Yesterday when I was talking with the Tsimshian Nation people, the thing they told me was that this last love song could be used by the Thunderbird people, but since it's a love song, I think what we can do as the Tlingit people is just take it and use a song similar to the song that we danced into during the ceremonial entrance song. So we've got permission as Tlingit people to go ahead and use this last song as a love song by any tribe, any clan in Southeast Alaska. Thank you very much, Tsimshians. We appreciate that.